What's the purpose behind that bit? Nicholas?
So we'd be tentative in where it says could.
Yeah, keep going. I'll
There
put
was
this on.
a reference to everything we could infer from the word could,
Mm-hmm.
and how we need to be tentative with using them because we don't know fully what applies here.
Good.
That annotation was done before we fully read the transcript.
Yep, it was, but you don't write that. But the idea here is that we've got these theorists that we're playing around with. Okay? You need to be able to play them off basically one against the other. And if you think about the mark scheme, it said that you could challenge the theorists based on the data we have, or go, you know what, this is clearly obvious wug test evidence. So obviously it's going to work in this particular situation. So rather than ruling one out, you're entering into a debate. Okay, so you're invited to use those theorists as part and parcel of your exploration of the information and the data that you have. Okay, so how did you feel when we went through the mark scheme? So through that indicative content? We're okay? Yeah? Did the stuff that came up, did it kind of make sense? Did you go, yeah, okay, yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, I understand what that is?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
I think it's good about splitting sections and you understand what fits.
Yes, and I think, it's a really important and interesting way of using this indicative content, and it's the reason why I've given it to you, is because if we've missed stuff out, just in looking at it, and then we go, oh yeah, okay, I should have done that. That's you need to make sure you include this on list, okay? So what I want to be able to do from here is to develop this, I must make sure I include kind of list. And then when we look at the sample material, I'm definitely not going to write that kind of list, okay? So,
sorry, interrupting. If I take a picture of it, I'll be able to see it, see all the annotations clearly, but I won't be able to see the edits, which is still something.
so, but you can still hear what we're talking about, and then I will point you to the different spots where we're going, okay? So you can then make those annotations, but then you can replay the video so that you can then go back into it, making sure that I give you the right video.
Yeah.
And not year 11, fifth form, unseen poetry on Havisham. Anyway, we digress. So, what I would like you to do is I would like us to do a need to include list. It's a lined paper. Lined paper. Breathe in. Breathe out. That's also being recorded, so you can imagine you can do this. Breathe in. Breathe out. Anyway, so the madness of my lessons. Can you imagine if we were suddenly observed? Crikey, I'd fall over. Right, so let's do this as a list. Line paper, line down the middle. Must make sure I do. I'm just going to wobble. Okay, must make sure I do on one side, on the other side, should probably avoid. Okay. There we go. Okay, so when we're dealing with a transcript, okay, I think the first thing we need to then focus on is we need to talk about child development, child-directed speech. Kind of makes sense. Okay, so if you have a transcript, okay, child-directed speech. Kind of anything to do with that. So evidence of it, and then the role of it. Okay. Obviously, as it says here, because remember these sort of 5 bullet points we have at the top of that indicative content are going to give you those sort of those big ticket sort of areas that we need to make sure that we cover within the process of our writing. We also need to know context, and that's going to be the story behind the transcript. Okay. So we need context. Do you need to tell me the story?
No.
No.
So it's the story of and within the transcript. Should probably avoid telling the story. Okay. Then we've got sort of language exchanges. If you're going to have a transcript, I would expect, and this is a shot across the bow, oh, well, kind of, not really that, but a kind of shot into the air. I would expect you're going to have an interaction of some form. Other than, it is unlikely that you're going to have a kid sitting around in the middle of a room just happily chatting away to themselves. You might do, but I would fully expect, in order for you to be able to establish child-directed speech, language assistance, language acquisition support systems, caretaker language, interactions, negotiations, all sorts of things like that, you will need to have some kind of turn taking. Okay, so it's a conversation. So this one here, language exchanges and language negotiations. Okay, so it is understanding those and looking specifically at how they're negotiating roles, interrupting. You've got your overlapping, absolutely. Your question, your answers, so your adjacency pairings. Whether you've got, for example, the father, he says the question, then he has to reform that because the kid doesn't know what to say, and then the kid is able to answer the second question. So that kind of self and that kind of like paired negotiation. So it's going to be exchanges and negotiations. Okay, so the language of exchange and negotiation. Okay, so that's generally kind of the different areas that we need to be able to pick up on, and we've covered those 5. Then the next bit must include data. This one here. So the sentence under those bullet points with examples of data. You have to quote. It's silly, otherwise you may as well just go home, which in some cases isn't a bad idea. However, so you must include direct references, okay, or quotes. Should probably avoid doing what?
Like large quotes?
Yeah, so using large chunks.
Making assumptions, like changing the story, happening.
Yeah, so that can be in the context, so assumptions.
What's it called when you sort of tell the story but you do it in your own words?
Paraphrase.
That's paraphrasing.
Yeah, so we can do that as well. Probably should avoid doing that.
If you,
Assumptions about the story.
really can't remember a quote, is it better to not mention?
There should never be an occasion where you can't remember the quote because you've got the transcript in front of you.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so this is not the same as having to memorise a poem. The data that you will have will be in front of you. What you have to remember is the knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So using large chunks of data, why is that a pretty bad form? Why would that not be a good idea to do? Charlie?
Because it's like quite blunt, you just need to put these specific bits.
Yeah,
It takes time.
perfect. Really, really specific. And it takes a long time to copy stuff out.
Yeah.
And kind of time's of the essence. So we need to be really, really efficient. Also, don't vaguely refer to the data.
Just put it in.
Use it.
not really
It's
talk
there.
about it.
Don't kind of like refer to it as if it's in the other side of the room and go, over there, the dad kind of was saying this. It's right in front of you. Okay? So avoid simple and vague references. Okay? Actually make those direct references instead. But you need to be highly selective. Okay?
I think that's the difficult bit about, like, when you're not meant to put like loads of a big quote in. I think half the time when someone does that, it's because they don't want to miss the actual main point.
Yeah, they're throwing as much as they can and hoping something about that is going to stick. But that would also suggest that if you've got quite a big chunk, and you know that there's somewhere in there is the answer, the thing that you're focusing on, and you put all of it in. To me, as your markers, I know that they have an idea of where they're going, but I don't think they quite know what that is yet. And that comes down to knowledge. It also comes down to practice and confidence that you know your stuff, and by golly, you're going to tell someone. And really, really kind of take it by the horns and kind of give it a good old shake. So a lot of this is kind of the approach to your question.
Yeah.
Let's actually talk about what you need to have in your questions in terms of your frameworks. So because you're dealing with actual words, okay, we need to use phonology and anything you can think of from the data to do with phonology. Now, where specifically have you been taught phonological stuff? Who specifically have you been taught that from? SJK. Yeah? You haven't done it from me because I've given you child language acquisition quite specifically, and we've covered aspects of phonology within that, but she's done the full-on proper grammar stuff, okay? Just because she did that in the autumn term and I'm doing this with you this term doesn't mean that they're separate. This is a perfect example, again, of you ensuring that the stuff you do with her, you put in with me, the stuff you do with me, you use with her. Okay, so for example, you might get language change with this. So you might get a parent who uses a really old-fashioned term, the kid picks up on it, but it's not something that we would normally see in sort of everyday modern usage. But that's language history, that's language change, or that's world language. Just because you're dealing with a kid doesn't mean you can't sort of bring in that knowledge within this as well. Okay, so it's really, really fluid. It's like getting a packet of seeds and just seeing what happens. Okay, but hopefully a little bit more direction. So I'm going to change colour. So this is more to do with the stuff that, like, sort of specific framework. So you need your phonology. Okay, so it needs to, and this is SJK. So I'm putting her in a box. Okay. So specifically with her at a real grammatical level, that's going to be your structural linguistics. But then as well, you've also got the stuff that you've done with me, okay, which is going to be CLA, child language acquisition. Okay, so you've got the hardcore grammar hardcore. I'm actually writing hardcore down. And more specifically, child language acquisition. Okay. Then we've got morphology. And it's exactly the same. SJK plus KGD. Okay. Then we've got Lexis. Guess what? SJK plus KGD. We've got grammar. Oops. SJK, funnily enough, KGD. And then we've got discourse. Who would have thought? SJK and KGD. Goodness me. That's something to write home about. Now, one thing that has been missed from this, and I don't think we've necessarily, oh no, we have done, we just missed it off, is we've kind of got general stuff up here in the orange and kind of approaches to it. We've then got hardcore language. Okay. You also need your theorists. Okay. And because we're dealing with child language acquisition and because we're dealing with speech, the things that we need to include are a different coloured pen. Don't want that. Oh, it's going to be pencil. Oh, that's a bit boring. I haven't got a different. I want a different colour. Never mind, it's going to be pencil. Okay. So we need structural linguistics. We need functional. And you will find that a lot of the phonology, morphology, lexis, grammar, and discourse actually, kind of as we know, it does appear in structural. Okay. And then we've got Piaget. We've done some wrong order. And Vygotsky. We've got Chomsky, not Chomp. Brunner in there as well. You can do Levinson if you want to. We've talked briefly about him. He and Brunner kind of are on the same page. You can bring in Gleason. Okay, so they're all structural. And all their different bits and pieces. Then we've got the functional guys. Okay, so we've got Halliday and Dorr. Okay. Best to avoid is conflating them, which means you get yourself all a bit confuddled and slightly confused. Okay, so it would do you well to make sure you understand the Chomsky versus the Piaget. Yeah, it's just really good practice. If you get yourself all confuddled, you're not going to know you're not going to go up from down or left from right. Okay? Halliday and Dorr are fairly standard. Dorr just simplifies it and makes it just a little bit more easier to understand. These two groups, one is nurture, which is to do with your environment and your social interactions, and where you are experiencing sound, which will have an impact on your structure. The other is, it's a switch in your brain, I'm going to flick. Okay? You can use Skinner and his pigeons only if what?
It's right.
Absolutely. Okay? Probably should avoid. Okay, I'm going to bring this all in together, throw in all of this to see if it sticks. Throw in all of this. To see what sticks. What should you avoid with the grammar?
Like saying to the child wrong.
Yeah, okay, so we need to avoid, and probably down here with the structures down here, and I'm going to put it as never. Never follow the deficit model. Or the deficit approach. You can mention the deficit approach. Definitely, you can certainly mention it, use it as part and parcel of why these parents are not correcting their child and why the child is making these virtuous errors. Go for it. But you yourself cannot say it is wrong. Because that's language change, which is SJK. Okay? The grammar bit up here, probably best to avoid just feature spotting.
Yeah. To make sure it all links in.
Yeah, it has to be quite homogeneous, like a bit of a homogeneous blob. Okay, almost like jelly, but not quite as tasty. Okay, so again, feature spotting. Avoid feature spotting. As much as you can. You will need to spot the features, but it's like, and they've done this, and they've done this, and they've done this, which clearly proves such and such. Well, you need to be a little bit more tentative. So hopefully that's going to be the kind of a definitely need to make sure that do and probably should avoid. Okay? Within your structure of your writing, and we've already covered this, okay? If you have a look at this approach here, we are identify, we comment, we analyse. Okay, I'll just give you that back again. Now what I want us to do is actually have a look at the pudding on the plate to see what other candidates have done. There are 7. We are not going to do them all by any means of the imagination because it will take us forever and it's quite dull. So, have you all got the notes down from this sheet? Yeah, Nicholas?
I'm not sure. When you say feature spotting, do you just mean picking out literally everything you see, as opposed to surface observation?
Yeah. So surface observation is your first stage of going into the data,
Yeah.
where we do that. But the feature spotting is what you do in your writing. So if you go back to when we went through the transcript, the first thing we did was feature spot. Right, that's the bus, okay. Right, okay, overlapping. Then and part of that was translating, but all of these annotations here, all of this here, and then up there, and crikey, all of that, that's not surface notice. The surface annotations are for you to simply get into the transcript.
Okay.
Yeah, the feature spotting is all you look for is evidence of work test, past and present participles, conflating verbs, copulars, positive and negative info. Basically, your big ticket items, the stuff that you remember and that have stuck in your head from lessons because you haven't revised. That's feature spotting. Have they used a noun? Yes, they have. Is there a question? Yes, there is.
Okay, so basically just say what you see and put that in the essay, and we shouldn't do that.
No, because this is a discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah? If it is say what you see, you'll be told, say what you see.
Yeah, it's like you know that chomps might be relevant to us, but
Discuss with me how and why you think that and where that's come from.
Got it.
Sorry?
Skinner, why you can't always use it?
Well, because he believed in the behavioural that language is a behaviour.
Yeah.
It's
When
not.
Yeah.
Okay. He did it in a lab, and he did it with pigeons,
Sorry, so that's
which is why it's been thrown out. Because Piaget and Chomsky came in and said, "Well, no, it can't be,
yeah.
because that simply isn't feasible." And then we've got case studies. We've got Jeannie and all the other Farrow children. We've got the Kennedy twins.
Yeah.
That's not a behaviour. That's a different way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Now, Skinner is about cognitive behaviour therapy. You can change your behaviours through therapy and through choices. A pigeon didn't choose. You don't choose to speak the way that you do because you're going to get a sweetie. You choose the way you do because of everything else. It's so incredibly limiting, and because not only did you do it with pigeons, not the most intelligent, you did it in a lab.
Yeah.
You can't do that with kids. You can't do any of it with kids. You're not allowed. You'd probably get shot by the parents.
Yeah.
But what the others did is that they studied thousands of children in their natural environments and listened to the way they talk and recorders. It's exactly the same with the language and gender stuff. What was the problem with lack of?
Just only her ideas, isn't it?
They were just her ideas and her assumptions. She didn't actually study anything. Zimmerman and West, what was the problem with them?
They didn't do enough.
They didn't do enough. And then we've got, who was it?
BT.
Was it Obar and Atkins? There was another one. Obar and Atkins then actually gave us... Yeah, but they've actually studied it, and they've studied swathes of it, and there are two theorists that would basically say that Zimmerman and West, because they didn't do enough, we actually should pay attention to what they say.
Yeah.
And I can't remember it. It was the bottom of a PowerPoint and on a page, and I can't see it anyway. But the whole... Sorry? Yes! What you said, BT. It was BT who actually went to with Zimmerman and West's theory and went, right, I'm now going to do this for hundreds of people rather than 11.
Because they did like 580.
Yeah. And Zimmerman and West did it 11.
Yeah.
You can't get a data set out of 11 people.
Then they said that
It was statistically...
insignificant.
That... Yes. See? We did it.
0.6 difference or something.
Oh,
Good memory, Stacey. That is pretty impressive.
you might get a name. Right. So, maybe lose straw. Okay, so this is the one that we need to look at. This is enormous on the screen. Okay? These are actually red lips, obviously. But please, in a moment of idleness, colour it in. So, as I said, there are 7. Okay, so what we will have is we will have the exemplar. It's been typed. And then we'll have the markers comments. But I also want you, if you can, keep to one side the mark scheme, which is that one. Okay? So if you remember, why did I annotate it like these? Why did I do these annotations down the side?
Like targets.
Yeah, your own personal targets. It isn't something to nail yourself to the cross with. I don't want you to use it as a weapon to beat yourself over with, Nicholas. But it is somewhere to aim for. Okay? Something to aim for. If you don't get there, fine. Okay, fine. As long as you're aiming up and not down, you're in the right game. So, now I've given you the whole. So it is massive. This one's quite interesting, this first page. Okay? because it gives you our assessment objectives. Now it says this assessment objective, so AO5, must be with at least one AO2, 3 or 4, either in the same task or 2 more linked tasks. So it's about creativity. That actually doesn't apply to child language acquisition. So you can cross it out. This is to do with your creative writing. So AO5 is coursework, and that's your creative writing. Okay? So the AO5 is at page 2, page 3 of your big lit book. Okay? That's coursework. So you're not assessed on AO5. Okay? That's the stuff that we'll do in class, possibly after Easter, but we'll see how far we get with this. Okay? So it's kind of, it says about this exemplar pack. Now on Shobi, I have put on this paper. I've put on this pack. I've also put on the data pack of all data packs, which covers a stupid amount of material. And one of those questions we will be preparing and you will be doing next week. I might do it as a homework, so we'll have a good sort of run at 3 lessons preparing it. But I actually want for you to do some writing on spoken language with child language acquisition, because that's what we've done. Okay, so analyse how Thomas and his parents use language to interact with each other, and the role this could have in shaping language development. We've kind of got that. So this is the paper. Oh look, you've got the mark scheme again. Keep going. Right. So exemplar A. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Oh, right.
So, what we need to do is we need to do this in 2 things. 2 things or 3 things. A green, yep, good, tick, tickety tick tick tick. A red, no, should have probably avoided that. It doesn't matter, you choose your colours. And then possibly a third one is they needed to have put this in, and why didn't they put this in? Okay. So you're looking roughly 3-ish colours. Okay, Ben, have you got that?
Yeah.
So it's that one. Yeah, so if you get that, we'll go through exemplar A, which is on page 4. Okay, so we know the transcript. We know the indicative content. We kind of know roughly what the examiners reckon they wanted to put in it. Let's see what A has got to say for all of 11 marks. Now they are band 2. Band 2 is a general understanding. Okay? So I'm reading from the mark scheme. They recall methods of analysis that show general understanding. The organise express ideas with some clarity, though lapses in use of terminology. Now this mark scheme is really good because it kind of says they're able to recall the big ticket items because that's when they were awake in the lesson. They can organise their stuff with some clarity, so they've got a structure, which is always good, but they forgot the terms and kind of made it up. Or described it. So they've had a go, okay? Summarises basic concepts and issues, so it doesn't necessarily sort of pin it on the head, and applies some understanding when discussing data. So again, we're dealing with something that's really, really rather wishy-washy. And then if you have a look at the bottom, AO3, oh, hang on, that one, there we are. Again, in level 2, describes the construction of meaning in the data, uses examples of context or language features to support this.
So are they band 2 in total?
Yeah. So they got 7 and then 4. Okay. So bless them. We need to be kind, but we're also going to be fairly
Is
ruthless.
this like an actual exam?
Yep. This was 2017. 2017? I'm not sure. Yeah, I think this was either 2017 or 2018. So these are actual responses, which is why we're being kind, because a person wrote this, but we're going to be ruthless and tear it apart. Anyway, they've moved on with their lives, I'm sure. Okay. Thomas shows features of spontaneous language, such as repetition and micropauses, as he tries to ensure he uses the correct words and pronunciation. An example, something we didn't write down on our list of things to do, language theory, speech language theory. You kind of need to put in things like that. Okay. Yeah, if you're dealing with the transcript, that's spoken language. Yeah. Yeah. So I probably put it in this orangey bit up here. Actually, no, you can put it in the frameworks a bit. I'm going to put spoken language. When we look at the writing bit, which is next, you deal with graphology and orthography, which is another framework, as well as lexis, grammar, and discourse. You don't deal with phonology and morphology because that's spoken and, well, they're not speaking. So I would hope that kind of makes sense. Anyway, okay, so an example of this is when Thomas is responding to a question asked by his father. I said, I am feeling well.
That's a very long quote.
Okay, so should probably have avoided. What can we say? Should probably have avoided. Nicholas? Overquoting. Okay? Really easy way of doing it is just giving the line number. Yeah? Sorry?
Are we allowed to just give a line number?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
That's amazing.
Well, because I've always said, right, look at line 4. This is what the father is saying. But then go line 4 and then specifically. I mean, if you have a look at what the indicative content is saying, if the indicative content is saying, focusing on line 4 and then giving you really, really specific examples. Let me see if I can find you. Where's it got? Oh, no. Oh, I've got paper coming out everywhere. It's all gone. Where's my thingy gone? There it is. No, I don't know either. Here we go. There, in the discourse bit. His parents use a range of interrogative structures to engage in conversation. For example, the tag, line 9, open line 5, close line 3. That's how you do it. So you're saying to me this is where I'm going to get it, rather than over-quoting the entire line 3. So you can just do that. You identify the technique and give me the line.
Would you actually have to write a line, or would you just put
L3.
So you can put L3 and then put a quote.
If you wanted to, yeah. If you wanted to really, really focus in on something specific, definitely. Or like L3 to 5 shows a range of interrogatives used. More specifically, the close.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that as well.
Oh, that's brilliant.
That is quite good.
Possibly a game changer.
If you did like line 3 to 5 and then zoomed in, that would show that you're.
Being highly selective.
Yeah.
No, that works. Absolutely. However, okay, I'm going to do in red, should probably have avoided overquoting. Overquote. Okay. Right, I'm going to do orange of, oh, come on, buddy, what else do you need to, you kind of need to have gone something. So in this opening paragraph, what have they not really done?
Introduced it.
You won't need an introduction. Get on with it.
Do you have to say that it's between the parents and it's a transcript?
So,
They haven't done
Not
yeah.
they haven't done Woffer. Bear in mind, I don't want a Woffer paragraph. I want it kind of like bled through all of it. It needs to kind of seep through the whole thing. If you do a Woffer paragraph and then move on, it's not quite the same. We do, though, get throughout the transcript, Thomas's father is always asking him questions. Really? Following Halodi's theory as he motivates Thomas to speak coherently. Ooh. For example, when the father asks Thomas what happens in that one, encouraging Thomas to recap and retell the story that they read together. Nick?
Actually, just quick aside. Would we get marked down if we misspelled the theorist's name?
No, you'll just irritate me.
Okay.
So I won't necessarily be overly generous.
Right.
You'll never lose marks, you just won't necessarily get them. So I'll never take marks away from you. I just might not give you very many. But you won't be told off for spelling someone's name wrong.
Okay.
That, though, Halliday, is a nuisance. But bear in mind, this kid's spelling, they might be dyslexic.
Vygotsky is the hardest one.
Vygotsky's are funny. But if you aren't dyslexic, you can't kind of really have much of a leg to stand on. If you are dyslexic, you won't be penalised because I would know that. I would still correct you, but I'm not going to use that against you. But no, you won't be penalised for spelling. You're not marked on spelling, punctuation and grammar. You are for your creative writing, but you're not marked for analysis. You do, however, need to be able to have AO1, which is a clear, coherent argument. If your clear, coherent argument is all of one sentence and is generally very waffly and incoherent, you're not going to get the very marks. You're not going to get very many at all. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, what has he done here? Let's work out what he has done. So what has Thomas done? Has candidate A, have they identified? They've identified spontaneous language. Is that a thing to identify in a 4-year-old?
Probably not.
Probably not. I don't know any 4-year-olds, unless they're precocious little idiots, mites, delightful angels, oh, this is recorded as well, who are able to plan and prepare their words. Don't think it's relevant, to be honest. So this ties in with the mark scheme about A, recalling methods of analysis. They're like, oh, transcript, spontaneous.
Could they, could you make a point about spontaneous language not being relevant because of the context? Would that be your
No, there's no point in just don't bring it up because it doesn't do anything. You're just making a really obvious statement. If, however, you have clear evidence that this child has been conditioned to speak like this, you know, like in a social situation, and they go, hello, please, yes, thank you, then clearly a 4-year-old saying hello, please, yes, thank you, that's not spontaneous. That child has been trained. That you can pick up, that you can mention, and then you can possibly reflect on Skinner, tentatively.
Could you talk about spontaneous language with anyone that's not a child, or is that not relevant either?
Probably not, because it's in the family home. I don't rehearse the things I say to my children. All the time. However, so this bit here, I'm going to do probably not, okay, is that bit, it's just not relevant. Yeah?
Is that just stuff they should probably just avoid saying?
Just don't say it. Because the context wouldn't encourage or allow that planned, crafted language to be there. So I just avoid it. And 4-year-olds don't tend to plan. Okay? But then we've got repetition and micropauses. As he tries to ensure he uses the correct words and pronunciation. Correct words, yes. Do the micropauses in the transcript reveal that he's using the correct pronunciation?
No.
No.
Should you say about repetition, like if he's in a stage of...
Yeah, which would indicate that Thomas is in, I don't know, this heuristic stage, it's not though, because the frequency of his repetition, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Definitely. That works, that's lovely.
Okay.
Because you're using that theorist to enhance your ability to engage with the material that you're going in front of you and basically unpick and find those clues. This bit here uses micropauses. Does the boy use... Yeah, maybe he does. Don't know about this one. Don't think he's using micropauses to kind of get the words right. So I'm going to put a question mark with that one. I think it's more to do with more sort of frequently to do with... I mean, if you have a look on the second page, towards the very bottom, I would give him roast beef, microwaved roast beef. There's no micropause in there, and microwaved is a really horrible word for the boy to say. So I don't agree with that one. An example of this is when Thomas is responding to a question asked by his father. I said, now where the hell is that? Oh, it's line 4. I said, I am feeling well. Now, contextually, why might the boy be pausing?
Because he's not feeling well.
No. Think about what's the story in the transcript? What's the story behind the transcript?
He's playing.
He's playing.
You might be distracted.
He might be distracted. Dad's come in, he's playing with his bus, because then they start talking about the bus. Dad says, what was wrong with you today? Nothing. come on, buddy, you've got a headache, you've been off school, you're not well, you've got a bit of a funny tummy, there's nothing is not nothing. Then they focus on the playing of the bus. So the likelihood is at the beginning of the transcript, Thomas is distracted because he's playing with the bus. Therefore, contextually, he is going to have those micro pauses because he's doing two things at the same time and Dad's interrupted him.
Can you say that?
Yes.
Is that an assumption or is that?
That, I think, you could say, it can be fairly assumed that.
Yeah.
Because you're not saying, well, it clearly is that, because
Yeah.
we don't see the kid, we're not in his brain, not allowed. But you can say, it is safe enough to assume such and such. We can fairly assume blah, blah, blah. If you put that in, you're covering your back. Okay? So, this one here, too definite, probably should avoid. Okay? Throughout the transcript, Thomas's father is always asking him questions. Is he? Page 1.
He just asked me.
Are those two different colours or is that just...
That's just, it's red still. I haven't changed colour yet. I might not do orange because it doesn't show up very well on the screen. Dad asks a lot of questions. But he doesn't always ask questions, so I'm going to put a box around that. Okay? Following Halliday's theory, as he motivates Thomas to speak coherently. I don't know how that is Halliday. So again, I think we've got a... Oh, Halliday! Oh, spoken language. So I think they've plucked it out of thin air and misapplied. Okay, so I'm going to do that in pencil. As in, you kind of need to go for. So here, I think we've got a misapplication. By encouraging Thomas to retell the story of the tiger who came to tea, Thomas's father is proving and reinforcing that spoken language can be put into words, and vice versa, making the concept of reading and writing understood by Thomas. By encouraging Thomas to retell the story of the tiger who came to tea, Thomas's father is proving and reinforcing that spoken language can be put into words.
Okay.
And vice versa. What now? Yeah, it's like breathe. I think what they've done is they've conflated. They've put two and two together and kind of got themselves confused with the reading section and kind of the spoken language bit.
Are you allowed to say vice versa?
Yeah, of course you can. It's not massively specific, but of course you can. When Thomas's father, but then you need to say how and why. When Thomas's father asks, "Do you want to read?" and then, "What book are we going to read next?" he is reinforcing positive feelings towards reading.
Is it?
Is he there?
I know that.
Had he forced Thomas to read a book he didn't want to read, Thomas would have been reluctant to read at all.
About an assumption.
That's a crazy, wild assumption. I think, again, we've got all sorts of different things kind of going on here. So I'm going to put that in a pencil.
Did they have such, did the dad say that the dad made a suggestion?
I think so, yeah. And as a result of reading the text and coming out of his imagination, Thomas's language is a lot more fixed, if you will. Okay.